watching the Bulldog Brewhouse Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Steve Grover. It's May 7th, 2026. The weather's pretty nice here in Calgary. Finally, we got rid of some of the snow and got some dry weather and some heat coming in, about 20 degrees Celsius. So thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Bulldog Brewhouse Podcast. Obviously, we have a good selection of guests so far this year, and I've got a very special gentleman here. Michael Neff from Hotlanta, Georgia. Isn't that correct? They call it Hotlanta, Mike?
They do,
Yeah.
unless it's, I guess, and then they call it hot as hell Atlanta.
Okay. So how are you doing?
We're doing good. It's not that much warmer down here, frankly. It's been pretty cool.
Okay.
And we're just running busy like normal and getting ready for summer.
Okay. So obviously I know who you are, but you're an attorney down in Atlanta, Georgia, and I know you through AAJ, and also you set up a group called the National Association of Premise Liability Attorneys, NAPLA, and
Yep.
and we're members, and also we sponsored your conference last year in Atlanta,
Yep.
Grover Law Firm. We came down. Unfortunately, it was rainy weather. During those
Yes.
couple days, it felt kind of depressing, but we had a great seminar. You gave us an opportunity to talk a little about Canadian law, And so tell me, I know who you are, but tell everyone out there who Michael Neff is, where you're from, and your work as a trial attorney, just generally to start off with.
Yeah, well, I grew up in New Jersey,
Okay.
where NHL hockey is actually bigger than college football, since we don't really have college football in New Jersey. Sorry, Rutgers fans. And yeah, loved growing up on the Jersey Shore and having 4 seasons. But after law school, I moved to Atlanta. I liked the weather, I liked the economy, and I liked how many single women there were at the time. So that was fun. And been there for over 30 years now. I opened up a practice 30 years ago, last month. And we do serious injury cases, whether it's car wreck or truck wreck or product liability or premises liability. And that's kind of what we're doing. We'll travel and we'll co-counsel and we'll consult. And I get to network with other lawyers nationally and internationally like you. And it's a lot of fun. And yeah, that's kind of how we go about business.
Yeah, okay. So obviously I know you because you wrote in 2 very famous books, Premises Liability and Advanced Premises Liability. I've read both of them, and I can tell you honestly, they've helped me win some cases up here, slip and falls and trip and falls. And that's sort of the way you've marketed your firm on the premises liability aspect, hasn't it been?
Yes. If this is a video podcast, you can see I'm old school. And I have a very old school practice consultant, and he had recommended that the way to get business that's timeless is to write articles and give presentations and take lawyers to lunch and breakfast. And then after we got some big verdicts, he's like, write a book. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, we got some more big verdicts, and he said, write another book. And he's been right about a lot of things. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of people doing pay-per-click and search engine optimization, but a lot of times when people get into trouble, they ask a friend or a lawyer advisor, hey, I need somebody for this type of case. And fortunately, the way that we've stuck around is because enough friends have said, hey, call Neff Injury Law, and they'll do a good job for you.
Okay, well, that's good. So obviously, Neff Injury Law has been around for about 30 years or so now?
Yeah, 30 years ago, April 96 is when we started.
All right, well, congratulations making 30 years. I mean, most lawyers, half lawyers graduating law school now, according to the ABA, can't even make the 5-year plan. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's tough. It's a different world. When I got out of school, the internet was a brand new thing, and emails was a brand new thing, and yellow pages were a big deal.
Yeah.
And now there are no more yellow pages, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's internet, and some people still do radio, some people still do billboards, but a lot of us just do word of mouth.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously, you've taken some good premise liability claims to judge and jury. You've got some good verdicts. Anything that stands out that my viewers should know about any case you've had that's a lasting impact on the client and how has helped market your firm?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I appreciate it. The thing that was fascinating is when I was growing up, I grew up the son of lawyers. So my middle name is Lawson because I'm literally the son of lawyers. And as I was growing up in the 80s, I was watching LA Law and movies about lawyers and reading books about lawyers. And somewhere along the line, I decided I wanted to be a trial lawyer. And neither of my parents were, they did other things. Um, but what premises liability law did in a way that I didn't directly intend it to do was give me more trial experience because they're harder cases. And, when lawyers get car wreck cases, a lot of times they settle right before trial and you never get to go the distance and you never get that experience that you need to take the next step to go to the next level. And with premises liability cases like trip and falls or criminal attacks, there's a lot of blame the victim. And so the defense always thinks, well, we can win at trial. And so that helped me remarkably because I got to try significant injury cases that I don't think they would have let me try in other circumstances. So we got a $9 million verdict on a rape case in 2011 against an alarm monitoring company. And that set a record at the time. And then the next year, 2012, we got a $2.8 million slip and fall verdict against a grocery store, which set a record at the time. And then the year after that, 2013, we got a $35 million verdict against Six Flags on a brain injury.
Yeah.
And that set a record. And so we were off and running. And then I think it was 2017, we got some verdicts against Avis. And we just kept building, and I got to try these 7 and 8 figure cases that, I could have never conceived of trying a case like that when I was in law school. And, you get that momentum and you get the reputation and you get your confidence up, and you just sometimes don't know where life's going to lead you.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, you've had some quite big success, obviously running premises liability. When you're growing up in Jersey, what was the attraction of becoming a trial lawyer? What attracted you as a young man? Was it the fame, the glory, or is it just the ability to, well, I don't know, or.
No, I never really perceived even the fictional lawyers that I was reading about or watching as famous. But what I loved, what I perceived as love, was being able to fight for the underdog.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up playing basketball. I played in high school. I played a year in college as a walk-on. And when it was March Madness in the States, if I didn't have my favorite school playing, I would root for the underdog. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just kind of who I'm drawn to 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And when you're in a situation where a normal person is hurt and they have to go against a $1 billion corporation or $1 billion insurance companies, you're the underdog. And you need somebody that is not afraid to fight against a bigger, stronger, more deep team. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, I would love to be the guy that will fight anybody in court and be able to get justice for real people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's romantic. And in hindsight, maybe it's for crazy people because there are different ways to make a living. But I find that, to me, that's exciting and that's challenging and that motivates me. because I want to be able to do things that not everyone can do.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the big challenges.
Yeah, and I've been doing personal injury for like 26 years now, pretty much. And I find it interesting. It's sort of like David versus Goliath. The idea, American Association of Justice was founded on that idea, pretty much. There's a famous lawyers out there like Jerry Spence, and uh, who's the guy I was thinking about? Out of San Francisco,
Melvin Belli.
Yeah. He was quite.
Max.
Yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been honored to be asked to be on the board of the Belli Society.
Yeah.
And there are a few lawyers that are famous. Dershowitz and Belli and.
Well, there's Howard Nations. He's pretty famous. I don't know if he's still kicking
absolutely.
around. Yeah.
Tremendous lawyer. And you mentioned AAJ, the American Association for Justice. I learned so much from being a member of that organization and being exposed to lawyers that paved the way because they had a vision of what was possible.
Yeah.
And I've read some great books and I've seen some great CLE over my years. And one of the favorite takeaways that I have from 12 Heroes, One Voice, or 12 Heroes, One Voice, Carl Bettinger, by Trial Guides. He says in that book, which I recommend to all lawyers that do what we do, he said a hero's job is not to be perfect, but it's to show us what's possible.
Yeah.
And man, I love that because, I literally remember a story in law school asking a trial lawyer about $1 million verdict. And this is like back in 1992. And that seemed like all the money in the world. And I just couldn't imagine. How could you get a verdict of $1 million? And it was a visiting speaker, lawyer from, quote, the real world. And so I was excited to see that too. And after his presentation, I said, how do you get a verdict of $1 million? And I was really disappointed by his answer because he said, well, you have $1 million case. And to me, that told me really nothing.
Yeah.
Kind of mad, or I didn't know whether he was being, condescending. I'm like, how does that happen? And that just kind of motivated me to figure it out, to realize what were the important things that persuade and motivate people.
Okay. And obviously, we always do contingency fee, probably like your office. It's very interesting because, I know, there's a perception like, okay, we get a percentage of what the people get. Like, say they get $1 million verdict, we take 30% or 33 or 35%. But I don't think the general public truly understands the work that goes into fighting an insurance company, and also the fact that if it wasn't for that fee agreement, that normal person couldn't afford a lawyer like myself or you because of private retainers. They couldn't just fund the file, correct?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's truer words couldn't be spoken. I love sports, but I have never bet probably more than $50 on a football game or a basketball game. And I just, I've been to Vegas, but I don't like to bet on cards or anything like that because I hate losing my money. It's hard earned. And yet I'll bet and have bet hundreds of thousands of dollars of money into case expenses.
Yeah.
And hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of lawyer time in a case. Because once you get in the fight, you have to be committed to going the distance. And I think there's a real perception, not just by people in the public, but brand new lawyers or lawyers that do other things, that it's just easy money. You throw out a demand letter and they cave. And so one of the suits, or one of the TV shows I like talking to my son about, who's a college freshman, is Suits, which I think is filmed in Toronto.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite show. I don't like Suits at all. I watched a couple
episodes. I have to tell my son, Meghan Markle's beautiful, and the lawyers' attitudes and egos can be on point with regard to some of the big firms, but that's not how law is practiced. It's not at all realistic. They say things like, oh, well, we're taking a deposition today, and if we don't settle, then we're going to go to trial next week. That's not how fast the system works.
Yeah. But that's,
yeah.
I mean, that's.
Oh, I'd love to try this case, but they'll just fold.
Yeah.
And you just laugh because it's not that simple. Many of the cases that settle only settle because it's the day before trial or the jury's out in the hallway, and you've just taken them the distance and shown that you're different than many of the people that will settle when push comes to shove. So, yeah, there's a lot psychologically that goes into it. There's a lot financially that goes into it. There's a lot of emotion and effort that goes into it that good lawyers put into the case.
Yeah, and obviously in the perception out there, like we do live in a microwave society. If I want to buy a new TV, I go to Best Buy, buy a new TV. If it breaks, I throw it in the garbage. I mean, people do expect stuff to be resolved ASAP, but what you've talked about is just the legal system. It goes on its own kind of time frame. Would you agree with that, opposed to what society expects?
Oh, 100%. And one analogy that I like from construction or big project work is good, fast, cheap. Sometimes you can get 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
You're not going to get all 3. So if you want to settle a case fast, you're not going to get top dollar for it. You're going to have to compromise and give away a lot. And if you want the work done well, if you want good, it's going to take time. You have to give the lawyer the opportunity to take depositions, ask for documents, fight like heck to get those documents, filing motions, and all those types of things. So it's a process, and it really is one of those situations where the lawyer can only be as good as the client will let them be. Will invest in the process of being patient and letting the lawyer do their job.
Yeah, and Melvin Belli's got a good quote, and you probably heard of it. I think 75% of a case depends on the facts of the case, and the other 25% depends on the skill of a lawyer. Would you agree with that analogy that Melvin talked about?
I think it depends on the case.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers may shift in some cases because there are cases that I think it's more than 25%. And I had a lawyer friend who went to a brain injury conference, and he advised that there was a panel of insurance adjusters speaking at the conference. And one of the insurance adjusters said, the number one criteria I look at when resolving a brain injury case is how good is the plaintiff's lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
Because those brain injury cases are complicated medically, and you need someone who's willing to invest the time and the money into the learning the medicine, or has already done that and continues to do that to stay on the front edge of it. You need that kind of person. And some of the TV people and billboard people are all about getting as many cases as they can and trying to work through them expeditiously.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I agree with that one for sure. I think it really matters how committed your lawyer is and how much experience they have and how much resources they're willing to commit to a fight.
Okay. And so let's talk a little about premise liability, because you're pretty much known in America and North America about a premise liability aspect of your case. And a lot of people, there's that bad, slip and falls and trip and falls. I mean, the banana peel scenario. And also, compared to other cases, like you mentioned, car wrecks or trucking accidents, or even med mal, it's always been my perception that premise liabilities are the most difficult cases to litigate of all the tort claims out there. Would you agree with that?
I think med mal is pretty tough because of the psychological desire for a lot of people to believe that the doctor is right.
Yeah.
Because if the doctor's not right, then they're at risk.
Mm-hmm.
I think close behind med mal is premises liability, because there's a lot of there, but for the grace of God go I. For everyone that's bought a house, or for the people that invest in real estate and have more than one property, you know, they see cases where people get hurt and they think, well, that could wipe me out.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I've worked for can be wiped away with some accident. And I think that is something that I learned early when I was doing focus groups as a younger lawyer. You need to learn about the safety rules, and you need to explain the safety rules to the people, because once they understand the safety rules, they understand the importance of keeping people safe, and they understand that people have the ability to keep people safe. Because I think the one thing that is the primary difference between a car wreck and a fall of any type or a criminal attack, everyone that walks into the courtroom to be a juror in a car wreck case, they either have a driver's license or have spent time as a passenger in a car or spent time in a passenger on a bus and know that red means stop and green means go. Mm-hmm. And so car wreck cases are intuitive because most of us know the rules of the road from personal experience. But unless you're a safety expert, you don't know that if you don't use the right kind of cleaning material on a floor, it can be slippery. You don't know that a guardrail should be 42 inches to comply with OSHA studies and commercial guidelines so that people don't fall over the rail. You don't know that a tripping hazard could be something that sticks more than a quarter inch off the ground. Gee, that's not very long at all, or very big at all. You don't know that as people get older, they tend to shuffle more and not pick their feet up, and that's why a quarter inch is really dangerous for someone, in their 60s or 70s, mm-hmm. or that has some other health concern. So all of these things I had to learn as a lawyer in order to be able to talk to jurors. And one of the best things I heard from an expert witness when I was a younger lawyer was that the building codes are written in blood. Every time something really bad happens, like a big fire or a building collapses, people die, we investigate, and we say, we don't ever want this to happen again. And so that's how the building codes have developed since the 1920s and the 1930s. When you used to build a skyscraper, they used to factor in, well, we're going to have one fatality per floor that we're building. And now they don't do that because you have harnesses and people are strapped in so they don't fall. There's just so many things to be aware of that can help keep people safe. But they're not intuitive to us. They don't teach us to this in grammar school or high school or college unless you go into something like risk management or OSHA investigations, which I had no idea of. I was a finance major in college and I thought I wanted to be a stockbroker someday. But then I got into this. And once you start learning, like, oh, wow, this is how you can keep people safe, then you start saying, well, why doesn't this happen? Why don't these rules get followed? And that's why people are getting hurt. And this is what we can do to keep people safe, is enforce the rules.
Yeah. And obviously, there's the AAJ idea of, profit over people, keeping people accountable. If something happens, like a pane of glass falls off a building, hits a kid on the ground and dies, something like that just doesn't happen. What structurally maybe the building's wrong or it was constructed improper. So there's got to be an accountability. Like in the day, we all got to be accountable to somebody ultimately. And so it's always good to be a trial lawyer to keep, if some accident happens, someone gets injured, to keep them accountable, eh?
Yeah, I think if you go back to comparing it to a car wreck, I think most people would appreciate that if you run through a red light and you hurt someone, that you should be responsible. Particularly if you've been drinking, right? That's even worse. But, most people don't know that if you're going to be a retailer, you need to be aware of how you clean your floors. You need to be aware of how you stock your shelves, because merchandise can fall from the top shelf and paralyze or kill somebody if it hits them in the head. You go to a Home Depot or a Costco and, some 100-pound generator falls from the top shelf. Yeah, that literally can kill someone. So, those are the things that we don't always think about in our day-to-day life. But every time we get behind the wheel of a car, we should realize I should put my seatbelt on. I should put my turn signal on. I should watch my speed. I should manage how much space before me and the car in front of me. And those are the things that we need to do. We need, as lawyers, we need to fill in the gaps between what people take for granted and what people aren't aware of.
Yeah, and if you're living in Canada, make sure in November you put your winter tires on, correct?
Yeah, or if you're a supermarket or a store, you're putting salt out on the sidewalk because you know that it's going to freeze, right? So yeah, I mean these are things that people do know, and some people take for granted. But what people need to appreciate is those rules exist to keep people safe.
Yeah. And what is so difficult a premise liability claim? Because people say, okay, you slipped on ice, boom, you fall down, you got a herniated disc, your knee's busted up, you got a fractured femur, but they're denying the claim. You being working as a trial lawyer and working up these premise liability claims, what's so difficult a premise liability claim opposed to a car wreck claim?
Well, I think there is a psychological bias that people don't want to think that this would happen to them. And they say things to themselves like, well, I pay attention to where I go. I watch where I'm walking. I'm aware of my circumstances. I wouldn't have ever been at an amusement park on a Wednesday night at 9 p.m. They have thoughts that they don't typically have about driving a car or being in a car. Driving a car or being in a car is basically an unavoidable aspect of life. There's no way to avoid it. And so people don't have this bias where they're like, well, this isn't going to happen to me because I never get into a car. That's just not practical. But people tend to think, well, if you had looked where you're going, this wouldn't have happened. You would have seen the ice. You would have not slipped or fallen. And, there are so many exceptions to that, starting with the primary one, that people don't literally walk looking down at the floor.
Yeah.
Nor should they. If you're walking across the street just looking down, you can't see cars in front of you. And, when you walk into a grocery store or a mall, all the retailers are trying to attract your eye attention to the goods that they're selling. And that makes sense. But they don't want you looking at the floor, which is why, when someone slips and falls at a grocery store, if they're looking at the cereal on the third shelf, how are they supposed to see that spill on the floor? So those are the things. People tend to blame the person that got hurt, and they don't tend to consider, isn't that something that really could have happened to me if I were in the same circumstance?
And I've done my fair share of like slip and falls and trip and falls, construction cases, pulling my hair out late at night trying to think of the theory and, trying to get the case settled and move it to trial. You always hear from defense counsel after it's called questioning up here in Alberta. I know it's called depositions in Georgia and the rest of the U.S. Well, you weren't looking out. Well, it's when you talk about that, about 3 months ago, I was leaving the gym where I work out and I was looking at my phone and the guy says, well, you better watch out, man. Is what's on your phone more important than watching out? Because, you're looking down, you can walk into people. And so why is it just a defense tactic? Like you weren't looking out, so therefore you should be looking at the floor other than just looking straight ahead.
Well, there is a legitimate legal doctrine or concept of comparative negligence.
Yeah.
That when you're looking at a case, you want to contemplate, well, who did something wrong? Who has fault here for that?
Yeah.
And I think there's a decent argument that if you're looking at your phone and you step off a regular curb and you twist your ankle, well, that's not the curb's fault. That's you not watching where you're stepping. Now, if the curb is of different height than what you're used to, and you knew it was there, and you were stepping down, and you were expecting it to be a 6 or 7 inch drop like it should be, and instead it was a 9.
Yeah.
Well, then your whole body gets thrown off. And one of, going back to the experts I've talked to over the years, I've worked with human factors experts, which talk about how people work in environments. And one of the more interesting descriptions of humans and how we operate was walking down a flight of stairs. Walking down a flight of stairs was described to me as a controlled fall. You put your foot over that step, and you know you're going to shift your balance going down. And you're counting on that step having a landing there at 7 inches. And if it's not there, you're surprised.
Yeah.
If it's 4 inches, you get resistance before you're expecting resistance, and it throws you forward. And if you don't get resistance when you expect, your also balance is thrown forward. So it's remarkable that we are such creatures of habit in how we learn to walk and how we learn to navigate our environment, that throwing off steps can be devastating to us, because we have to anticipate that they're going to be where they're supposed to be. And one of my other experts told me a story about in the Middle Ages, what they would do in castles, because they anticipated that they would get attacked, is they'd have one of the steps in the stairs that was of a different height. And everyone that lived in the castle knew that. And so they wouldn't get thrown off. But when the marauders came, they would be tripping at that step.
Yeah.
And they would be taking advantage of them tripping and, defending their castle that way.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to me, because it really shows an awareness of this going back 500 years.
Okay. And obviously, you've written 2 fabulous books. I've read both of them, Premises Liability, Advanced Premises Liability. And who's the publisher on those books, if people are interested in getting a copy of one of the 2?
Yeah, Trial Guides is a publisher for plaintiffs' lawyers out in Portland, Oregon. And I mentioned, Carl Bettinger's book, and there's a lot of great books that have been written by Trial Guides authors, like Rules of the Road, and Polarizing the Case. I'm really happy that they were willing to publish our books. And the first book, which is Premises Liability, A Guide to Success, is in its second printing, which is a big deal in the legal publishing world. And the second book is Advanced Premises Liability, A Guide Through Trial, which is kind of what I call like the director's cut, where you give, here's what we asked at trial, or here's what we asked in this deposition, and here's why we did it. And I always kind of like hearing the actors and the director talk about a scene and what was going through their mind as it was being filmed. And Trial Guides has had a number of other books like that when I was reading them, it helped me be creative in how I approached my cases. So I wanted to bring that approach to premises liability.
Yeah, and I've read the first book, I think it's the one chapter that stands out to me all the time, is when you're opening a premise liability claim like slip and fall, trip and fall, like negligent security case, you got to open that case from day one, knowing that you're probably going to be facing a summary dismissal application. That's your theory, isn't it? And now I've incorporated that in my office, and I pound that into my associates, because don't worry about it. We got ice up here in Canada. We got Chinooks. I don't know if you're familiar with Chinooks. I talked about that in Atlanta last May, about how it goes from it'll go to minus 30 degrees to plus 10 overnight here. And, but what's so important about building a case, knowing that you got to build it from day one, knowing that you could face a summary dismissal application, which is there's no claim at all, and the judge or justice could dismiss the claim early on.
Right. Well, again, it goes back to the big difference with car wrecks. A lot of times, there's a mindset of, well, we'll sort that out later, and 90% of the time, there's someone who's blamed for the wreck. They get a police citation or traffic ticket. A rear end collision is your kind of classic example of someone not doing what they were supposed to do. But when you have a fall, when you have issues of comparative negligence, you need to understand that your client's going to get attacked from day one, and you need to prepare your case for that. And you need to prepare yourself for, the legal mindset that just because someone falls doesn't mean someone did something wrong, which is true. Someone could fall because they were looking at their phone and not paying attention, and everything else about the floor was just fine, or the curb or the step.
Or they could be like me, trip over your own feet. I've done that a couple times in my lifetime.
Yeah. There's the joke about tripping over the foul line for the basketball player.
Yeah.
So that happens. We misstep from time to time. And so you need to be prepared to show that it goes beyond someone falling. They fell because there was a reason. And the reason was that the property owner or the property manager didn't take necessary precautions that are reasonable under the circumstances. Like if you lived in Canada, putting ice out on a sidewalk. Mm-hmm. That type of thing is in your head as, hey, this is what reasonable, responsible people need to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Not so much in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And we have our days where we get ice.
Yeah.
And that's where things can fall on the system. You should know that if you live in Atlanta, we're going to have 5-10 days, maybe 15 that are icy. Yeah. And we can't just be unprepared for that. We can't just, do nothing. That's not reasonable.
So to prepare your case from day one, say someone comes in your office tomorrow. This fine, nice lady says, you know what, I did a slip and fall, compound fracture, brain injury, off work, maybe not return to work. You're obviously going to, interview her, sign her up, get her to sign the medical authorizations. From there, is there something that your team does to investigate the claim? They go to the scene, get an investigator involved, try and get CCTV camera video if they can disclose that to you, which rarely happens early on?
Yeah, those are all really good things to do. And one of the immediate shortcuts was Google Earth and other programs now like that, where you can go look at a shopping center and get street view and see what's going on. It's not as good as being there, but you can at least get a sense of, okay, well, where did you fall, based on this picture? And then when you're there, you're oriented. Is there a pothole there where someone could step in and break an ankle? Mm-hmm. Or, we just resolved a case where it was a retail store and they had painted a parking lot, but they didn't add any sand to the paint. And so when it rained, the paint on the surface was slippery because there was no anti-slip adhesive. And if you look at the manufacturer's directions or recommendations for how you use the product, you have to add sand to it. So, it's not an industry secret. It's something that I didn't know before I did this work. Yeah. Because I didn't operate parking lots. I didn't operate shopping centers. I didn't know. But the people that do this, they do know. And that's why it's important in the law when you're looking at what a reasonable person knows or should know. You're not looking at Joe Smith walking down the street, what he knows. You're looking at, Jennifer, who operates a shopping center. What do they know about it? And that's the right standard, and that's the right mindset, because there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And that's, I think, important for the lawyer to investigate and to talk to the jury about. Yeah. If you did it the right way, then this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. And these are very time-intensive cases, very financial commitments by the firm. So, obviously, to make it a benefit for like a law firm like yourself or myself to take on the case, I mean, you're more looking for catastrophic claims, not soft tissue, low back pain that resolves
Right.
within 2 months or so, and try and sue Kroger for 20 grand and fight it out for 10 years, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's important. It's frustrating when to have to tell folks I can't help them, or I don't know a lawyer that can.
Yeah.
When I started out as a lawyer, I took just about everything that walked in the front door, and with car wrecks, you could settle a case and make it worth your time and your client's time. And people were in the mindset of let's be reasonable and let's move this through and let's get things done. There was, when I started practicing in this area, there was such a bias against fall cases. You think of the banana peel, the intentional insurance fraud, the bad jokes, right? That a lot of people thought these cases weren't winnable.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a younger lawyer, there really wasn't a lot of competition. And so I eventually was stunned when people started advertising for fall cases because nobody wanted them like 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Only a handful of people would do them. And it's not that way anymore, and I think that's a good thing. But I also think it's not as easy as opening a spreadsheet and adding 20 cases and sending out a demand letter and settling it. It's a really different animal than that.
Yeah, and it's a lot of logistic workup, a lot of financial resources, and obviously a lot of frustration. When you got a good case and they're saying 50-50 contrib and there's nothing else your client could do, they're always going to hit you with contrib no matter what. Wouldn't you agree that on a slip and fall case? Try and argue that? Right? Comparative negligence.
Yes,
Yeah,
certainly. Yes, it depends on what venue or jurisdiction you're in. Some states, if you're 1% at fault, you get nothing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a tough way to live.
I think that's North Carolina, isn't it? North Carolina's like 1%?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
so.
I have not taken any cases there. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, they'll look for a hook. And that's the thing about being a trial lawyer, being a litigator. It's been described to me as being so different than being a doctor. If you're in an operating room, everybody is working to improve that patient, help that patient. When you're in a courtroom, one person's trying to save the patient and the other person's trying to kill it.
Yeah.
And the patient in the courtroom is the case, the legal case. The defense, they want you to walk out of there with a zero. That's probably how most people view their job.
Yeah.
And so it's a very different environment. It's not generally collaborative. There are exceptions. And your adversaries generally aren't, there to, how can we work together to do this? It depends.
Yeah.
If the case is bad enough, they're motivated to get it done. But most of the cases, you're going to be fighting for everything tooth and nail, whether it's the document or the witness or the questions or the concessions or the experts. It just is a much harder, more complicated task than representing someone who was hit because a tractor trailer turned left and didn't allow adequate time. That's just a lot simpler case.
Yeah. Well, we done a lot of tractor trailer cases, and we're all familiar with Joe Freed out of Atlanta too. I mean, for some reason, Atlanta's the hotbed for litigators now. I don't know if you know it. It goes from city to city. Used to be L.A., Houston, New York, and I think Atlanta's hot right now with you and Joe down there. But even on tractor trailer cases, we've got a lot of cases where it looks like clear negligence, and the company's always trying to argue contrib or comparative negligence on even a rear end crash. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. We have worked on cases that the vehicles have collided, and vehicle one is blaming vehicle two for turning into their lane, and vehicle two is blaming vehicle one for turning into their lane. And a lot of times it comes down to things like paint transfer.
Yeah.
And you need an accident reconstructionist who's excellent at physics, and you get into math, which a lot of lawyers don't like.
No.
But but yeah, I mean, that's just how this world is. If there's a lot at stake, there's a lot that's done to try and prevent you from getting where you want to go.
Yeah, and one topic we talked about early on in the podcast, and which I'm a proud member of, is NAPLA. Can you talk a little about NAPLA? You know, the history of the foundation, what's the purpose of it, and obviously, I saw the email I think this week about you're having a big conference coming up in September 23rd to 25th in beautiful San Antonio. Some nice Mexican food down there on the Riverwalk.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. So. NAPLA was one of my COVID projects, and COVID was really one of the tough times in life for everybody, for sure. And for trial lawyers, we weren't able to go to court, so we weren't able to move our cases. We weren't able to get cases done, because a lot of times it's the threat of going to court that gives the impetus to the insurance companies to settle it.
Yeah.
And so rather than sit here and worry about how I'm paying my employees, and I was really happy that I didn't, miss payroll for that whole thing. We hung in there and, took care of the people that take care of us. But I thought, there are organizations that are dedicated to a lot of different aspects of the law, but there is no organization that exists to support people that work on premises liability cases. And I think that is because these cases historically have been so tough.
Yeah.
And, AAJ had trucking sections and motor vehicle sections, and, they didn't have a dedicated premises liability section. And I thought to myself, now that I'm stuck in, my backyard or stuck in my home office, let me work on something that would allow us to connect with other lawyers and share information about this area of law that doesn't get a lot of spotlight. And that's how I came up with NAPLA. And, a lot of people during that time were filling in with podcasts and webinars.
Yeah.
And so, we were part of that crew, like, hey, let's share information now. And of course, after we got through the pandemic and started to get back into normal, we continued on with the webinars that are every month, and we did our first in-person CLE in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I think it was 23, and then last year in Atlanta, we did our second in-person one, and now we're looking forward to Texas. But I think as I look back at my career, if I had not invested the time and money to go to conferences and talk to other lawyers and get ideas from other lawyers that were presenting and writing, I would not have developed the way that I developed, and I wouldn't have gotten the results for my clients that I was able to get.
Mm-hmm.
And, I guess a quick way of saying it is, nobody gets to where they go 100% by themselves. We have help to get there.
Oh, yeah.
And I had it, and, I recognize I still need it. And, let's create a network so that lawyers can help each other and their clients.
Yeah, and I remember going to Chicago the first year. It was at the Chicago Bar Association building. And
Yep.
I remember you asked everyone to stand up and introduce themselves, and I said I was from Canada. A lot of lawyers are like, the eyebrow raised, but you know what? A slip and fall is a slip and fall if it happens in Banff, Alberta, or Vail, Colorado. You know what I'm saying? If it's a dog bite file, our law changes, but we're all based on common law. But a dog bite case or trip and fall, all those mechanics apply across borders. That's why I was there, and I learned a lot of stuff that first seminar. Conference.
Gravity changes a little bit depending on altitude, maybe. No, I don't think gravity does it. Yeah, you know what? Gravity is gravity, right?
Yeah, air's a little thinner up here in Calgary opposed to Atlanta. But and it was a great seminar. I learned a lot. I took a lot of stuff back to apply to my premise liability claims. I'm grateful that I became a member. And you also took us to the Cubs game at Wrigley Field. We saw a game from one of those townhomes up in the top where they rent out the place for food and drink and everything. That was a great experience. So thank you for giving me that experience to go to Wrigley Field. And then last year we were down there in Atlanta. We did go see the Braves game because it was we were stuck in downtown Atlanta, by the Georgia Bar Association building. So it was kind of tough because I love Buckhead. I've been to Atlanta a lot. I like going hanging out with Buckhead. And Lenox Square is kind of scary a little bit now, but there's Phillips Place. There's some good restaurants up there. But last year was a great year. I think we were one of the premier sponsors for you guys last year. It was
Absolutely.
And we got the ability to talk. Kimmy's still here. I don't know if you remember Kimmy. She came down with me.
Right. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And so anyone can pretty much join NAPLA. If someone wants to join it, where do you go to become a member?
Yeah, it is limited to plaintiffs' lawyers only.
Yeah, plaintiffs.
We don't have insurance defense or corporate defense lawyers, but you can go to premises-liability.org.
Okay.
Yep, and there's a /join if you don't button. But we're looking for plaintiffs lawyers that want to learn and want to network and want to share ideas and want to do better tomorrow than they're doing today.
Well, I think that's always important, just to improve your skills every year, because anything comes pretty mundane. If you're a skier and you keep on skiing the green bunny hill for 20 years, it's going to be pretty boring. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we look forward to being down in San Antonio. I was there last year. It was a great city. Really old, Texas city compared to Dallas and Houston, but there's great food down there. Riverwalk is beautiful. And, obviously you mentioned earlier, we're getting close to the end of the podcast with you, but let's talk a little about sports, because you said you're a big sports fan, eh? So outside law, your life isn't just law and courts all day long, eh?
Well, right. I grew up in New Jersey, and so the good news, bad news is I grew up a big Yankees fan, and I grew up a Philadelphia 76ers fan. And I liked the Rams in football because the Giants and the Jets were really bad when I was growing up. And so those are my three primary teams. And I played a bunch of basketball and loved it. And I tell people I wouldn't have been a good lawyer if I hadn't been a bad point guard. Because when you play basketball at a competitive level, you're gonna deal with people pressing you from all different types of angles. They're gonna throw sometimes 2 guys or 3 guys at you, and it's really emotionally overwhelming when you're starting out. Like, oh my God, what do I do? They're gonna grab the ball. I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna, lose everything.
Yeah.
And one of the remarkable things when I walked into the courtroom as a young lawyer is I had those same kind of initial anxiety, panic, like walking into the courtroom. And everyone's got to get through their first hearing, their first argument, their first trial. And one of the things that helped me was I recognized this is the same feeling I had when I was facing a full court press. And, when you learn tactics to deal with a full court press in basketball, you can try and split the defenders. You can pass over them. You can fake like you're going up and then bend down and throw a bounce pass around them. You can dribble forward and then dribble back to create different angles and different space. You have options.
Yeah.
And once you have options, you calm down and you say, okay, how can I attack the things that are attacking me? How do I take advantage of this? Same mindset applies in the courtroom to me. Defense is trying to argue A, B, and C. Where are they vulnerable on those arguments? And having that sense of calm and having that sense of where do I have options and what's safe and what's risky and what's worth it, what's the upside. So that's what's great about sports is I think they teach you a lot about yourself emotionally.
Yeah.
And in both sports and in being a lawyer, you're going to have days where you get beaten down and you're going to have to find the courage to get up.
Yeah.
And you need a lawyer who's going to get up. You do. You just, that's part of life.
Yeah.
And learned it more times than I wish to admit. But I think that getting up after you're knocked down is one of the biggest things And you don't get that from calling somebody on a billboard.
Mm-hmm.
You got to ask around. Who's
Yeah.
going to have the toughness to stay in the game,
Mm-hmm.
even when things don't look good or feel good?
Yeah, and obviously, that's like Rocky Balboa's idea. I know you're a 76ers fan, but, in the Rocky movies, he said if you get knocked down, the true mark of a person is getting back up and getting back into the fight. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh yeah, Rocky was my favorite movie, probably of all time, and it came out when I was like 10. And I think the reason why it's universally loved is because it was a guy down on his luck
Yeah,
who just wanted to be able to go the distance and have pride in himself as a man that
Yeah.
he could distance, like something no one else could do.
yeah,
I think I think we all feel that way sometimes. Like,
yeah,
I get through this really, really, really hard thing. Can I just get to the next level, the next day?
yeah,
And I think that persistence is respected
yeah,
by people. And
Yeah.
that's why we loved Rocky and we rooted for him. And I think those are the traits you want to model to your kids and your friends and as a professional. And I think, that's a lot of times half the battle.
yeah.
Is staying.
Yeah, even educating your clients. I mean, there's that theory now, victim to victor. Your client's a victim of an accident, brain injury. Their life is catastrophic. Say their wife leaves them. They got the lawyer to guide them through the process. You go to the court, you get a judgment. That person has become the victor and now has the funds and the ability to get on with his or her life. And I think that's really important to put a perception because, I even saw a new client today saying my whole life is ruined. You got to give them that positive theory of what happens, and we're here to guide you through the process. Wouldn't you agree with that as a trial lawyer?
Yes, I think it is important what we do emotionally sometimes, more important sometimes even than how much money you can get. I
Yeah,
think people that go through really horrible situations like being sexually assaulted or being, injured and losing their leg, they want a couple of things. They want it to not happen to someone else. They don't want to have gone through this for like basically no reason. So they want accountability, but they also want to help other people.
yeah,
And they want someone to listen.
hmm
They want someone to acknowledge that what happened to them shouldn't have happened to them.
hmm
And I think in part they want someone to acknowledge that they did their best to get through it.
Yeah.
And so my big first trial in 2011 was this woman that was raped at knife point in her own home because the alarm monitoring company didn't tell her that the alarm had been going off all day.
hmm
And in fact, they put her account on pause several times during the day so they wouldn't have to keep calling her. And they were set up to like just close 23 calls, per hour, rather than handle the one call that could change someone's life the right way. So it was a real like corporate, like, let's check all these boxes and not focus on the right thing. And I remember trying that case, and after we got a verdict of $9 million, which set a record in Georgia for a sexual assault, it was a holiday. It was Veterans Day. And so we were the only people in the courthouse that day. And normally after a verdict is returned, the jurors walk out the back exit of where they deliberate in the jury room. But on this one occasion, the jurors lined up and they walked out through the center of the court. And you have the desks on both sides, the plaintiff's desk and the defendant's desk. And each one of them stopped at our desk where our client was at the edge of the desk closer to the hall to walk out. Each one of them either hugged her or shook her hand and offered her words of encouragement.
hmm
And they individually did that, and then they walked out.
hmm
I I'm telling you, it was something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that client won the Georgia Trial Lawyers award for courageous conduct for going through that trial.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that the verdict gave her self-respect back.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we won that case on appeal.
Yeah.
So she did we did collect the verdict on her behalf plus interest. So it allowed her to buy a different house.
Yeah.
And go back to sleep because she didn't sleep in the old house.
Yeah.
It was really tough.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I have a bad day, I think of that client.
Oh, yeah.
And her acknowledging that verdict validated that experience was unjust.
Yeah.
And that people recognized the injustice of that, and people supported her and heard her story.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't spend that
Yeah.
at the bank, but when I have a bad day, I pull that up and I think, no matter what, you know, I've had moments in my career where I've helped change people's lives for the better, and that's also a big deal.
Yeah, and sometimes, we talk about health before wealth. I mean, it's a large verdict you recovered for her, but the jury gave her self-pride back. And as a trial lawyer, you had a person that was, she probably was really beaten down emotionally, mentally, and now she can raise her head high again and feel proud of herself, and she's got her self-respect back. And that's probably a huge victory for you and your firm to get for that person.
Yeah, she sadly had very serious post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
That was not disputed. And that verdict helped her heal. And I think that's amazing because they don't teach you that in law school either.
No. Yeah.
You only learn that, on your journey where you recognize sometimes after the fact that what we do is not just about the money.
Yeah. Well, money comes and goes. Like, I don't know if you listen to college sports radio on Cyrus, but Rick Neuheisel, I don't know if you remember, of him.
Yeah, the UCLA quarterback.
Yeah, now he's a CBS commentary. He said he has this theory. Money's like, waves as they hit the beach from the ocean. It comes and goes, but your health is always here. Your self-pride, you got to keep your self-pride going. And no matter if you're walking through hell, you just keep on walking, eh?
I think what was beautiful about not just that case, but I think generally the concept of letting a jury of our peers decide what's justice is that there's a community in that courtroom.
Yeah.
And that community wants to protect one of its own.
Yeah.
I think that's why you can get results and people complain, that's a nuclear verdict, that's a runaway jury. Well, maybe the defendant had gotten away from what it should have done, right? Because you don't just get big numbers without bad conduct.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's another thing that we have to talk about as lawyers. And I think once you experience that, once you're in that environment and you see it, like people know what the truth is and they know what justice is and they know and they just don't see it every day and they don't have the power to actually effectuate change or to actually lay down justice. And so when they get the opportunity and they do it, I've had jurors crying after a verdict and, asked to hug me and asked to shake my hand. And I mean, that's gratifying, but I say, thank you for helping my client.
Yeah.
Thank you for caring. Thank you for taking the time out of your life. Thank you for what you did in that courtroom, which took justice and took courage to do.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, how long was that jury trial? That security case. How many days was that?
That was a week.
A week. Okay. Yeah, here in Canada, unfortunately, our trials are like 25 days. Bench only, and We got to have 400 experts in like 3.
Well, I've had 2 weeks and 2.5 week trials, and those are tough.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a serious bench trial, although I've done arbitrations, which are pretty similar.
Yeah.
They usually require
Okay.
I think I prefer the jury, although it's sometimes more stress and more work.
Well, especially doing focus groups and trying to figure out what the typical juror in, like, where is it, Fulton County where you're located in Atlanta?
Well, we're in Metro Atlanta. There's really 5 counties, and this was in Gwinnett.
Okay.
Which is one of the 5 metro counties.
Yeah. Okay. And talking about doing the right thing, I know you're in Atlanta, you're from New Jersey. It kind of surprised me saying that you're a Rams fan. St. Louis Rams, LA Rams. So the draft was just recently, and my wife let me hang out in my man cave, order my pizza, and drink a couple beers. I sat there all evening watching every round of first round, and it kind of shocked me when the Rams called Ty Simpson from Alabama, when they already have like a really MVP quarterback. What do you think of that pick as a Rams fan?
Oh, well, I think a lot of people thought that 13 was early, but when you see the guy that you like, you grab him.
Yeah.
And Stafford's great, but he's 38 years old, and at some point you need a transition because Father Time is undefeated. And I was initially pretty upset. I thought, well, couldn't you have traded back? And after the fact, they talked about, well, we tried to, but we couldn't, and we had to make a pick, and this is the guy that we wanted. And if you look at the Rams coach, McVay, his track record is pretty good with working with quarterbacks, whether it was Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield or Carson Wentz or Matt Stafford. He's coached up some pretty darn good game plans. And I do live in SEC country, so I saw Simpson's first 5 games, and he was looking really good. I was confident he was going to be a first-round draft pick. He got banged up at the end of the year, and they didn't perform as well. But time will tell. I think it's fascinating because I talked to my son, who's in college. He's a freshman. And he's starting to think about law school, even though I said, hey, this is a tough job. And 50% of first-round draft picks don't really make it. And what is the percentage of lawyers hired by firms, that make it? Because the big firms hire the Harvards and the Yales and the law reviews. And, a lot of times history bears out that it's not really the smartest person that always wins, but it's the person that's best able to relate to their audience, to the jury.
Yeah.
And I think in life, a lot of times we focus, on the things that are really easy to measure. IQ or grade point average for lawyers, or size, weight, and speed for football players. And we underestimate the value of things we can't measure, like a football player's heart or a trial lawyer's heart, a football player's determination or a trial lawyer's determination, how much that person's willing to work to get better at their craft, because we've all seen people that just coast on their ability, and we see people with little to moderate ability, and they work their butt off, and they're really good at what they do. And hard to measure that. And I think the draft is like that. We'll see for Mr. Simpson.
Yeah, and obviously the Super Bowl's this year in LA again. I heard it's at SoFi Stadium again, so hopefully your Rams make the Super Bowl. If they do, would you be at the game in LA, or would you be watching from home?
Well, I know what those people pay for tickets.
Yeah, I know.
So it's always like, hey, I think the game at home sounds good. The popcorn's free and there's no line in the bathroom. But I think that's been a bucket list. I should get to a Super Bowl. It's just I waited so long. It's crazy expensive, 5 figures for tickets, and wow. Okay. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck with your Rams this season. Hopefully Ty Simpson, he's got a couple years under Sean McVay and Stafford to be trained, and he sit the bench like sort of what Aaron Rodgers did behind Brett Favre. And so good luck to your Rams. And obviously baseball started. Are you a Yankees fan or are you a Braves fan?
I'll say both. But I grew up with the Yankees, so like your heart is your heart, and I can't say that that's not the team that I grew up rooting for.
Okay, all right, and good luck with your practice. Continued, success for you and the lawyers that work with you and all your staff, and we'll probably see you at NAPLA down in San Antonio, Texas, this September. And in the meantime, stay safe, and it's always a pleasure talking. Okay, Mike?
All right, thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Take care. And for everyone out there, there's another episode of the podcast, and everyone stay safe and tune in next time for the Bulldog Brewhouse Podcast. Obviously, we got an interesting guest, Mike Neff, and we'll keep on continuing getting great guests on the podcast. In the meantime, take care, stay safe, and enjoy the good weather here in Canada. Take care. Bye-bye.
The Bulldog Brewhouse Podcast.